everyone, and welcome to GameSpot Gameplay. As you may notice, I am not Kevin Van Ord. He is busy doing thief work. I'm Tom McShay, so I'm filling in today, and we have a couple people to join me. I got Chris Waters.
Hey, Tom. Hi, everybody.
How you doing, Chris Waters?
I had a burger and a malted milkshake for lunch.
So you recently started a live stream show.
I did. Yeah, multiple players on Tuesdays.
Every Tuesday, like 11 p.m.
11 a.m., man.
11 a.m.
This ain't a late night show.
This ain't a late night show.
Yeah, no, it's we play video games, and we'll have a new episode this coming Tuesday at 11 a.m. and also playing some PvZ Garden Warfare on Monday afternoon.
Oh, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting. So we also have Justin Haywald, who is our senior news editor. We brought you in October
in November,
or something?
yeah.
November?
At Justin Hardcore Gaming Haywald from one of the channels that I recently opened up. But I'm really surprised that you just outed Kevin Van Ord for his thieving.
Yeah.
That the reason he's not going to be here is because he's a thief.
He's been doing a lot of thieving recently.
He's a known thief.
With his hands thusly all the time. Like, this is what Kevin Van Ord does now.
Yeah, I mean, so far so good. He's not gotten caught. Like, he's not in jail or anything.
He's not in jail.
I haven't seen a wanted poster with his face on it around town, so I guess.
Yeah.
He does spend a lot of time stealing hearts.
Oh yes. Okay, so with that, we're going to start it off. There is a huge news story this week. Irrational Games, who have been around for 17 years, they made System Shock 2.
I thought you were going to say Flappy Bird.
They made BioShock. They made BioShock Infinite.
Did they have
they
a
made
hand in
SWAT 4.
Flappy Bird at all?
They are winding down, according to their creative head, Ken Levine.
I mean, a lot of outlets, and us included, basically said they're shutting down.
Yeah.
His exact wording was winding down, but winding down from about 120 employees to 15.
Yes, so a lot of really talented people are going to lose their jobs, which is a shame.
Have lost their jobs.
Have lost their jobs already.
It's over. They're done.
Just shortly on that, we have seen people come from Irrational and do great things already. Most notably last year was Gone Home. So hopefully the talented people find a place within this industry.
And they just shipped a hugely successful game. By any metric, they're not going to have trouble getting placed in another studio. I mean, that's what these guys look for when they're trying to hire new developers. Is like, have you shipped a game? Yeah, they shipped BioShock Infinite.
You might have heard of it.
It's a little thing. So, I mean, my first question is, Irrational, for all intents and purposes, is gone. What is their legacy? How did they change the industry in the 17 years that they've been around?
Not at all.
Not at all? This is what your thought?
No, of course they had a huge impact. The BioShock is a lot of people's favorite games. And as many problems as BioShock Infinite had, I know that you did not enjoy that a lot. It was a really fun shooter, and it really, I feel like, pushed narrative in ways that not a lot of other developers even can do that. I mean, he takes a really artistic bent. He takes a tack that a lot of other AAA shooters, they just kind of go straight out for fun shooting, and he goes for a story and tries to, whether he was successful or not, and I think a lot of ways BioShock was a failure, but he tries to tackle tougher subjects.
Yeah. So Chris, I consider them an auteur studio.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by auteur studio?
Is that autistic?
That Ken Levine is the auteur at the head of the studio, and it all sort of falls downhill from his sort of core main vision.
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But yeah, I mean, it seems like they have an artistic focus on their games.
Mm-hmm.
So they are no longer going to be a AAA studio. If Ken Levine's team is still Irrational, we don't know.
What does AAA mean?
They are no longer going to be like the 150-person team that takes 4 years and cutting-edge hardware, all that other
hundreds
stuff.
of millions of dollars.
They're scaling back the size and the scale considerably.
Sure.
How do you think that impacts the AAA industry as we know it, not having this kind of studio there anymore?
You mean? Well, I feel like the impact might be that, here is a studio that, has made some critically acclaimed games. On countless Game of the Year lists, multiple iterations of this game, and it's certainly hugely influential in terms of design and content for first-person shooters, but also just games in general. Seeing that endeavor go kaput, did they fail? But I mean, BioShock Infinite sold well. Are they a financial failure? Because that sends huge warning signs, right, in terms of the AAA model. But if it's not that they are a financial failure, then why are they dissolving? Are they an institutional failure? They just couldn't come together?
I mean, when you say failure, I think it really has a lot more to do with spending so much time making something like this. And that's just the model of games these days, especially when we're going to Xbox One and PS4. The development time, the development teams needed to make something on that same level are probably even larger. The budgets will need to be larger. That's just not something that I think is as supportable. And that we're going to see smaller teams making different experiences. And I think our definition of AAA is going to change because of that.
I think so too, and especially, I think one of the things that developers, certainly Epic Games has talked about, is with next-gen consoles and this hardware, the kind of software it can run, the kind of game development software it can run, requires less people, less processing time, less time to create richer worlds, to create like better graphics, to create all sort of the baubles of hallmarks of a AAA title. So, as sort of technology and this software advances, can a team of 15 people put together something that, stands toe-to-toe with a BioShock Infinite?
Of course they can.
Absolutely, and they have been,
A team of 4 people have made wonderful experience. I mean, Gone Home was a team of, 4 or 5 people?
Yeah.
And, it's, of course, not on that same level, but it was also a much shorter experience. But that was equally powerful in some ways.
Minecraft,
yeah.
Minecraft is made with one person.
So it's super, yeah. So I think that, this is... It's not so much that I think that Irrational Studios is setting this sort of phasing down, this sort of shutting down is just showing us a new path that developers can sort of chart through the industry, right? We've seen, or on a different scale, I guess, because we've seen people, move up in the world, they join bigger and bigger developers, and then they're working on that huge game, and that makes their career, and then they can work on their next huge game and huge game and huge game, but a lot of people do that huge game and they're like, okay, well, that was super intense. I don't know if I can handle that. And I think that it's nice to see this kind of diversification of career path for a game developer. And if I was a game developer, obviously having 100 people laid off from a studio is not heartening, but having high-profile developers sort of investing, saying, no, this smaller team, this is actually a better way to go, is seems more heartening to me in terms of the diversity of future job opportunities.
And in some ways, we've seen this coming for a while. I mean, you can never guess when so many layoffs are going to hit, but we've seen more B-tier, C-tier developers kind of being phased out. There really are no C-tier, B-tier games anymore. It's either very low budget, put together very quickly, or these huge, large budget AAA games. And of course, that's something that's going to happen less and less because there's just not the time and money. When you can do really amazing experiences with smaller teams on a faster cycle, well, of course, that's going to win out over spending 3 years and millions of dollars.
That is very true. So just going back a little to Irrational is, so I mean, a lot of the conversation, and myself included, we're talking about how we're excited to see what Ken Levine's going to do next because he's kind of brilliant in some ways. Do you think we give too much credit to Ken Levine and similar heads of giant AAA studios, or do you think that it's appropriate? Yes.
Yeah, no,
Why do you think
100%. I mean, that is the way that we think about things. It's really easy to have this is the figurehead. Ken Levine is BioShock. He is the creator. But I mean, that's silly. There are hundreds of people that go into making these games, just like movies. When you finish a movie and at the end you see the credits roll, and you're like, oh yeah, that was a Steven Spielberg movie. Well, no, it was all these other people. So I went to, as an example, I went to the Star Wars behind the scenes thing this weekend, and we think of George Lucas as having created this world, and yeah, he had a large part in creating the wonderful Episode 4, 5, and 6. But when you have the behind the scenes guys talking about it, the people that actually made these models, that made it work, it was not just George Lucas. If he didn't have this amazing team of Industrial Light and Magic, these people putting these models together, finding ways to make them fly through space, the movies would have been crap. They would not have survived just on the power of his script.
And so, but that, and that's obviously true. Whenever you have a huge team, everyone's pulling together, and certainly the leadership matters. The leadership, the creative vision, that artistic vision, that is an important role on the team, but it's a role on the team. The converse of that is we do live in a culture of celebrity and of we want to give one person credit for it. We want to admire one person. We want to put them on a pedestal. We want to be like, oh, this is a Shinji Mikami game. I'm totally down with this. And to a certain extent, that has value in sort of your from a gamer's decision point. You kind of know what something coming out of Naughty Dog is going to be like. But that even Naughty Dog, is Neil Druckmann. That's not one of those studios that has the one name.
Oh,
at
it's
the
Neil
top.
Druckmann and Bruce Straley.
Yeah, it's those two guys.
And Amy Hennig also.
Yeah,
She does the Uncharted
so
stuff.
there's three. You just named three people,
Yeah.
not one. You know, like I think that it's interesting to see. You know, it's interesting, just sort of cultural reflection of where games are, to see these kind of, you know, figures emerging and becoming discussed more, and you know, I think it's just sort of a natural progression into pop culture, is that you try to sort of pin it to Cliff Bleszinski or Shigeru Miyamoto and stuff like that, and you know, I think it's kind of cool to have those names, to have those single names,
Well,
because then.
I guess real quick with this, because we have to wrap this up at some point, but the reverse to that is like Derek, you made Spelunky, and
And
Ed
Andy
McMillan and Tommy made Super Meat Boy,
Yeah.
and Jonathan Blow made Braid. And it's like, so clearly this is their creative vision, and it is realized on screen, and there's very few other people who helped, if any at all. Could you argue that Ken Levine, his vision is BioShock Infinite, and he had other people to help with the art and help with the music, but this is his vision on the disc, on the screen, that's what we're seeing? Or do you think that's still too much credit?
When you get to something of that scope and that magnitude, some of that has to fall apart. Like you rely on your cinematographer, like to use the movie example,
Yes.
you rely on your cinematographer to find these scenes, and they actually have a really big part, even though it's your idea in the first place. They have a big part in how that movie looks. And
Or
how
you
it
write
plays
the
out.
script, and the actors are the ones who actually give it the weight and the emotion.
Terrible actors can break a movie.
Okay.
I mean, and you have studios like
Or
Rockstar.
make it if you're Tom McShay and you love terrible movies.
Or you're Tom Cruise. You just make every movie. I love Tom
Yeah,
Cruise.
that is true.
Well, like think about Rockstar. I mean, we know Sam Houser because he's this crazy reclusive guy, but Rockstar Studios themselves never have a front-facing spokesperson for the game. Like there is no Grand Theft Auto spokesperson.
Yeah.
It
It's
is
the
always
same
the
with
collective.
Blizzard doesn't really have that. I don't know who made Half-Life 2. There's a few studios who were just like, no, it's a team effort. And there's other ones where it's like, no, Shigeru Miyamoto, he's been making everything by hand for the last 30 years.
Which raises the interesting question: how much are these people created and encouraged, sort of cultivated as a PR move? I mean, if you're not just someone coming from Irrational Games, but you're like creative founder and creative director Ken Levine, his vision, like that's the one that people are going to want to talk to on their show. That's the one that people are going to want to attach that to, and that's the thing that's going to be able to like drive that, maybe elevate that PR cycle into more mainstream. Like if mainstream media can get their hooks into it, they're not just going to want someone to come on the PR team to just come off and show the game.
Yeah, that is
They're going
true.
to want that person to talk to.
That's. I mean, Suda51 hasn't directed games since No More Heroes 2, but we always talk about Suda because he's everything with Grasshopper. So yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
So there's another story this week that's kind of a non-story right now, but I thought it could be interesting. So Amazon has a set-top box coming out. And it's going to be like Apple TV probably, and it's going to come out rumored to be in March, and it's basically going to stream Hulu and Amazon and all that other stuff to your television. Netflix, all that good stuff.
Crunchyroll.
I couldn't think of what Crunchyroll was.
Voodoo.
And it's supposed to also use the Android architecture. So it kind of sounds like it could be
Could this be the next Ouya?
Well, it's like the Kindle Fire,
next
except it plugs
Ouya.
into your TV.
Isn't
So
there an
just-
Ouya too?
There is a Ouya too. So it just made me think about like so many games now are being made for the iPhone, and they're being made for Android and made for PCs.
And you know, people really want a way to play those on their TV. They've spoken loud and clear. The Ouya is so incredibly popular.
You and sarcasm.
I hate having to be tethered to my phone. I really want to sit down on my
I
couch.
need that small screen experience on the big screen.
wanna
So my
blow it up.
question was, if you have hardware that is relatively powerful, and you have it so it's in 900 million people's homes, is it possible that we have a step towards a one console future where games are all that matters and not necessarily the hardware, the tech, or proprietary medium behind it? Or do you think that is still just a pipe dream that is not even worth dreaming about?
It's going to happen. That is.
You think there will be a one console future?
No. Well, I mean, the thing is, the console is just not going to matter. That would be like saying there's a one TV future. A lot of people are going to keep making TVs. The way that we interact with it is going to change. But I think, eventually, the way that we think about consoles is going to go away, and it's going to be something that we're able to access really easily. I mean, Sony wants to do this. They want you to just access games from your TV. You don't have to worry about purchasing a different box. You just go into your TV, access Netflix, and all of the PlayStation library.
But that is still proprietary because you still need to have a Sony something or other to access these games.
Somebody wants to make money from this. There has to be a gatekeeper. There's going to be a gatekeeper because businesses.
Okay, so you believe that there will always be some sort of proprietary format, but it will just become more widespread.
Well, so talk to me about how Sony let's take PlayStation Plus. Let's just say PlayStation Plus is from 10 years in the future. You just have a PlayStation subscription, and you plug your TV into the internet, or you have your whatever box,
Hollow box.
Yeah, and you buy a controller from Sony, and that's all you buy, and then it's all digital. It's stored in the cloud. It's streaming to your TV.
That's the plan.
Is that what you're imagining?
No, I mean that is what.
Are you cutting out the console, or is it just fully streaming directly into your TV? Because TVs now have processors
everything
on them. They have Ethernet jacks. Like you can get Amazon Instant Video on your TV directly. Why do you even need that set-top box?
So, the PlayStation Now that I used when I was at at CES earlier this year, that was coming from the TV. I mean, I have no idea what bandwidth they were using. I don't know how far away their actual systems were, but that was only a TV and a PS3 controller, and it was streaming The Last of Us. They were already cutting out the console, and that's really cool. That's not the future. That's really soon. That's now.
The present.
Yeah.
And it's just how far are they going to be able to take that? How big can our infrastructure? How much of our infrastructure can handle that?
So that is a streaming service, am I right?
Yes.
So I guess that's the big question is I don't know if America, which has great internet compared to most of the world, can even handle streaming that kind of stuff.
I mean, as we saw with the Xbox One.
Infrastructure is not there.
So then that raises the question. So we're probably going to be sold hardware for still 10 more years at least until our internet is good. So, I mean, do you expect hardware to still be like PS4 where it is like bleeding edge? Or do you think hardware is going to keep getting scaled back because we don't really need that kind of technology?
Yeah, it's such an expensive proposition to get into making this hardware. I think this could very well be the last. I don't know. I'm just kind of making this up, but this could very well be the last regular console that we see, and they're going to make this last as long as they can, and hopefully within 8 years, the infrastructure is big enough that the people who would spend money on it at least will be able to get access to those games, and everyone else will be using the last gen console.
Okay. So, Chris, I mean, when people talk about like the end of the consoles, which is what people are talking about right now.
Sure.
It's usually a portent of doom and gloom. How do you think that gaming life will be better when this inevitably happens?
How will it be better?
How will it be better than what we have now?
My living room will be less cluttered. I mean, it will. If you don't have the hardware, then you don't have that extra cost of entry, like Justin was saying. You don't have that extra expenditure. So theoretically, you're making it more affordable. Now, of course, you also have to have a TV, which displays these things, and those are expensive.
Everybody's got a TV.
But yeah, TV is kind of standard.
Yeah.
Right? Especially, if gaming is your hobby. In terms of like production pipeline and stuff like that, if you have no console, you have no discs. And if you have no discs, you have no brick and mortar retailers. Except for used sales, maybe. So
we've seen that doesn't affect prices that much. I mean, people still pay $60 for a digital download of these games.
Sure.
Nintendo has said openly, like, yeah, we could charge less, but we're not going to because that cheapens the experience.
Yeah, but then again, we've been paying $15-$20 for premium downloadable experiences for how long now? 5 years, maybe a little more. What happens when we've been doing that for 10 years? What happens when that price point comes as, I mean, it's already as ingrained as the 60, but as you're continually doing digital purchases, and as places as Sony and Microsoft are trying to encourage you with like day one digital download special bonuses, like get your feather in your cap or whatever, how long till they start like shaving that price just a little bit? I mean, PlayStation Plus, they're going to shave like 10% off your price, or even like $2 off a downloadable thing. Like that is a tangible reason to go digital, to make those price points, to erode that.
Or would we get less of a game? Like, would we get more Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes type experiences where, yeah, it's a little cheaper, but it's also 2 hours. You can replay it and, wait for the next part of this experience, which is going to be Phantom Pain, which will never come out because it's too big.
And is that the future of, say, BioShock? A 15-man team can make 2 chapters of BioShock and then release it, and then make 2 more chapters and release it, and then 2 more chapters and then release it. Do you have these ongoing seasons? I mean, we already have sort of the season-based mentality going with. Telltale has had great success with them. Already the season pass thing is in place for DLC.
There's also Valve is great with
their episodic content. I mean, but there are lots of teams experimenting with that kind of content, and I think that as this digital future comes more and more upon us, I think the articulation of price points is only going to get more diverse as people try to find ways to entice you to pay for that game.
I guess that's the question that's been haunting. I mean, because it's price points is scary because free to play is often bad. It is often bad. Not always. League of Legends does it well. Dota 2 does it well.
$50, $60 games are often bad.
Yes.
$50, $60 games are also often bad because they spend so much money on look at how good this game looks, and then you're getting a game that's 7 hours long, or you're getting a game that's reliant on other people to make it fun because it's all multiplayer. So how do you think pricing will change when all of a sudden everything is equal, every game is on every platform, and it's just a pure meritocracy, and that is it? Will we still see Dungeon Keeper on mobile type business plans? Will we still see the $60 games?
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm going back on what I said before. Not every game is going to be on every platform, and I think there will always be a Nintendo. There will always be a gatekeeper like them who wants a very specialized experience and will try to provide for them the purest way to experience that.
Do you think
Absolutely.
Nintendo? Because if Nintendo is still struggling to sell, do you think that they can keep doing that as opposed to we're going to release our games for a $900 million or 900 million person audience?
Well, I mean, Nintendo is very willing to experiment, and we've seen sometimes they're successful, like with the Wii. Sometimes they're not successful with the Wii U.
Yep.
But they're still really, really successful with the 3DS. Their handhelds are selling like gangbusters. I mean, to say that they're not doing well is to completely ignore the 3DS. It's things like the Wii U, maybe they will probably move away from doing stuff like that if the next iteration of this is a failure. But I think we'll always have companies that like to experiment and to push the boundaries of how we interact with that hardware.
And we will also always have companies that are holding on to their games, and this is the only way you can get their content, because we've already we see this playing out already with content battles in the TV realm. CBS is there. You're only watching very few of their shows on Hulu or on Netflix.
Yeah.
Mostly you got to go through CBS.com. That's why Amazon and Netflix and Hulu have all sunk millions and millions of dollars into creating their own original content, because there's this belief that you can creating the content, owning it, syndicating it. That's where that's the most profitable endeavor. That's where you really have power, is if you're creating that content, not just if you're distributing that content. So, in this sort of future of, this breakdown of you need this specific box to play this thing, you're going to need this subscription to Xbox Live to play this thing, because those companies are always going to hold on
To something.
Yeah, to something, and not just try to throw it all out there and may the best game win.
So maybe eventually the hardware will kind of disappear, but then in its place will rise up PlayStation Now, basically.
Or will the hardware become part of our clothing, and we have to get into our gaming suits and put on our gaming hats?
Strap on the Oculus.
Strap on all of the things, and the insertion things, and the external fluid catching things.
Yep.
And so that's how you experience
the hardware.
It's all going to be in your phone. It's all going to be in your phone.
It comes out from under the TV, goes into your spinal cord, and you just
That would be pretty fun. I like the last part especially. I don't want to have to move. So finally, what do you think Amazon's chances are to even compete in the console space?
They have an uphill battle coming to gamers who are already so jaded about the heavyweights, about the Microsoft and Sony. Having a contender that, when I think about it, I think Ouya, and that's not a great comparison to start off with.
Amazon's a little bigger, more trusted than Ouya. Chris, do you have any?
Sure, but what did they even want to compete against an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4? The set-top box that's been rumored and is going to be coming out pretty soon probably is, like you said, it's a Roku competitor, it's an Apple TV competitor.
Yep.
That market is already saturated. There are just straight up TVs that do that stuff, and you don't even have to buy that box. Obviously the name Amazon has super brand power, but how much power does it really have? Because I watch Amazon Video through my Xbox One. I could watch it through any number of things that I already have. You know, I'm down with the service and with buying stuff from them, but it's a whole different leap to do I invest in that hardware? Because then that hardware has to have a value proposition that's distinct from what I already have.
I mean, they're trying to play catch up. They're coming at the tail end of this. It feels like that race is already run, and they're about halfway to the finish line. And it feels like I'm gonna come and catch up. I can get you guys.
So they kind of did that too with the iPad and the other Android tablets, and the Kindle Fire's done really well. So I mean, it is possible to be the latecomer and still have a success.
True, but also the tablet market and people's like fervor for tablets.
They throw them out every year. Right in the garbage. Then they get a new one.
That kind of technophile, that kind of like product lust and appetite, I feel like has been growing exponentially in recent years, whereas, Roku's stuff to stream this stuff is not like people want to have it, but it's not like the sexy thing. To get,
No. Okay.
I don't know.
And it is they introduced a more powerful tablet that's cheaper. That is a really appealing proposition.
Plus, it's called the Fire.
Yeah,
which is a great
because
name.
it's Kindle. It comes from the Kindle. And it's Fire, and I really like my Kindle.
So there's one other story that I thought was interesting this week. Other people might not. Twitch plays Pokemon.
Boring. Sorry.
So this is basically like someone figured out a way to stream Pokemon Red, and then the users in the chat would type in, left or right or whatever control they wanted
B.
the protagonist to do, and that the protagonist would do it. And so you have 80,000 plus people at once trying to control
Putting
a
their
single
fingers
game.
on the controller, getting their inputs.
Their Cheeto paws all over
And
it.
it's just madness.
Well, why would you? It went up to 120,000 people.
120,000 concurrent users. It's been going on for 9 straight days. It is a phenomenon that will probably burn out really quickly.
Well, what do you mean really quickly? It's been going on for a week. That's keeping some
That's,
fire.
see how long
that's
it
longer
lasts.
than Flappy Bird was.
That's
popular.
longer than some of my relationships.
So what is it that is appealing about this? Justin, do you have any idea?
I was so surprised when I first saw this and I heard about it. I was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of funny. And it's so frustrating to watch because it's just like this spastic, like I'm moving back and forth. Open, I need to look at the helix fossil. Like there's a religion that's grown up around the observing the helix fossil. Like there are people in the chat who are just like, all praise the helix base god.
Can you talk about that? Because I don't think most people know what you're talking about.
There's so many facets of this craziness. So, I mean, it started off with just people trying to fight to move their character and to win the game. But of course, you have people who are anarchists who want to watch this game burn.
Poketrolls.
And so, of course, one of the items that they collected was the helix fossil. Of course, they're never going to be able to use it because that would take a weird coordinated effort.
The helix fossil, you go to a specific point in the game and you use it to resurrect some kind of fossil
an ancient,
Pokemon.
Yeah. And so people have built up an internet religion. What is it now? At 75,000 people. Some of them have an internet religion around the helix fossil as their god, and some of the Pokemon are their prophets.
Jay Leno and Abby are the prophets who died in
trying to save the world. There's a false prophet Pokemon in the party now.
There's the whole democracy versus anarchy mechanic, which basically, if the slider goes to democracy, then the majority vote will carry, but if it goes to anarchy, then every single vote carries.
And democracy pretty much never is in effect. It is almost always anarchy.
Yeah. So, Chris, I mean, you know about this because you read my editorial and you've listened to Justin and I talk about it.
Yes.
Is there anything that sounds interesting about this to you?
I think it's like you could be part of a hive mind. Right? Like, imagine yourself
That's your
in one
goal.
of these
It's like the buggers in Ender's Game.
Yeah, it's like imagine yourself in one of these futuristic societies, dystopian places where, you're plugged into whatever external brain that your brain becomes a part of, you're all you're part of this soup that is pulling together to accomplish something very concrete
The zeitgeist.
and very specific.
The zeitgeist.
Yeah.
The
and
zeitgeist.
I think it's just fascinating to me to think about the way that this massive humanity could come together and the way these different agendas pop up. It's a whole little feudal kingdom spring up. I mean, this is fascinating microcosm of community involvement, of saboteurs and white knights, and it's just this crazy drama is playing out with ups, downs, A's, B's, democracies, anarchies. And I think it's fascinating. I think it's you can't like look directly at it. Like you
No.
got to like look at it through your peripheral vision or something like that. Because if you stare directly into Twitch Plays Pokemon, you will go mad.
It's like the Ark of the Covenant. So I mean, as Justin was talking about before, like there's religions that are forming, and basically the appeal, as far as I can understand, is it's emergent narratives.
Yeah.
And people are kind of creating their own stories.
Totally.
So I guess my question is, can a developer make something like this, or does it have to be something that's wholly organic and made by the people
But they
in their
already
own
did,
thing?
didn't they? Like,
How did people?
I feel like this whole thing is just a test for that thing, that the Twitch integration to troll player. What's the game that's doing that?
Are you talking about Tetris?
No. There's that game that's coming out that has like if you're streaming the game, Twitch chat can troll you. They can make stuff happen.
That's a
in the game.
thing.
I feel like this whole
Okay.
Pokemon thing is a test for that.
Huh. So I mean, I
That's
guess
Benito, by the way, folks. He's the engineer for our podcast.
Benito
here.
Gonzalez is dropping the knowledge bomb. So I guess is it possible? I mean, if you take away like the trolling aspect, is it possible for a developer to actually make this kind of thing?
To harness
like the
this?
emergent gameplay or emergent narratives of this? Because it seems, I don't know.
I mean, people say like, "Oh, you could never make something purposefully go viral," but no, there are totally people who construct
Oh, yeah.
viral things.
Twitch has got my back. The game is Daylight.
Daylight.
Daylight. Thank you, Twitch.
So yeah, I mean, people could construct something like this purposefully, but I think it's more seeing what people are into. Like, it's not just Twitch, but the same thing that we saw with Flappy Bird, this kind of very, very normal game, very what would seem to most of us to be very boring, but a whole narrative sprung up around it that we want to be a part of. We want this kind of quirky and different conflict that we can feel like we're a part of and interact with. And I mean, we don't get that from regular AAA games, but this kind of feels like the real world that we all have a part in, that gamers are really a part of.
So do you agree with that, Chris? That we don't have that in our AAA games?
That we don't have that kind of emergent narrative, or that kind of community.
That kind of community fascination.
I mean, you get like blips of it, like different shades of it in like a Demon Souls or a Dark Souls, where you have that community stuff, people writing down and coming into your game to troll you, stuff that's out of your control, right? I think that this, I'm trying to imagine a game in which you would harness just a random like group of people in like a very low functioning role, but then you, the player. So like let's say
Like
there's
GTA.
a battle game, and these giant warships are at battle, but like, and you're the commander, and like it's not quite like the trickle down in like the systems and that the guns your ship develops or the moves you make are in some way determined by this chat melee of people, and you have to
it's
like
almost
work the best that you can with what they've provided you or something. I mean, how? Yeah.
Well,
like,
think
how do
about
you-
the way that Eve was integrated with Dust 514.
Yeah.
And that you kind of recruited people, and in Dust you recruited people, and Eve people recruited Dust people to fight these wars.
Yep.
But it was kind of like they didn't have any direct control, so it is almost like that in a sense.
So that seems like too many layers of abstraction, right?
There's a lot of
The
them.
appeal of Twitch Plays Pokemon is it's right there.
Yes.
And it's like instant. Everyone has equal opportunity of influencing it, can like put their little finger on the scale and see what happens. And what happens here is like, it translates in a very clear way, in a way that's easy to understand. And so I think
I don't know about easy to understand. Have you watched it? Because it's kind of crazy.
It's kind of crazy.
Like, if I didn't have the Cliff Notes next to me, I wouldn't know what was going on.
sure. Yes.
So do you guys think?
that's a good point.
Do you guys think this is a fad, or do you think this is something that in some form will carry on for the future?
Twitch Plays Pokemon is a fad. Yeah, it's going to peter out, of course.
Sure.
Well,
and
I'm
there will
talking
be
about
some
more-
diehard people continuing to do it like years
Well,
from
not
now,
just Twitch
but-
plays Pokemon. I'm talking about like, will we see games in some form like this in the future, or is this kind of like?
I think no.
I don't want to swear,
I
but it's a
think
cluster
no-
something.
I think no good idea. One of the things that I love about the game industry is you have these good ideas, these little mechanics, these innovations that come into play, and maybe they don't catch on in a big way. It's not like, oh, that stick to cover system. Oh yeah, we're gonna go. Hell, everyone's gonna use that. But they're sort of in the mix, and so developers they sort of enter the soup of what developers are thinking of in terms of ways they can make games. And I think now that this is like a landmark in terms of community interaction pulling together and just creating its own little vibrant little nexus of play, that's not going to go ignored by game developers.
A T3HHH in chat also brought up Salty Bet, which is kind of the
Salty
same.
Bet was amazing. Salty Bet was you watched two really crazy fighters on Twitch fighting. They were AI controlled, and you bet on who would win. It'd be like Ryu versus like Mr. Kool-Aid or something like that, and it was it was really fun for a while.
And so, yeah, you get into these narratives of like, oh, Barney's back. Oh, it's going to go down. Or like, always bet on Dragon Ball Z characters.
We had that one.
And so, like this is a phenomenon that so many people, it has this vibrancy in this life. The Twitch community that, sort of gathers around this stuff that, no, that's definitely not going away. And it'll definitely be interesting to see who the spiritual successors are to Twitch Plays Pokemon, or, what the next more ambitious Twitch Plays game is going to be, because there's going to be more.
It is the kind of thing that would be really hard for a company to monetize, though. Like, how are you going to make money from this? And
ads?
Is that enough?
I don't know. 50,000 a day for Flappy Bird, so ads do something.
I guess so.
Okay, so we're going to wrap that up, and we're going to play a game before we end the show.
All right.
So you guys have to take a card.
Bird?
Just take one card each. Don't look at it. So we're doing Metagame. Metagame is kind of, what is it, like apples to apples? Is that a comparison?
Did you say don't look at it or look at it?
Don't look at it.
Don't look at it.
So I handed them both a card, and the card has a game name on it, like Super Mario Brothers. And I'm going to give them a category, and they have to, on the spot, think of something that fits within this category and argue it and make it interesting.
I looked at my card.
So if the question is which game is more overrated, Justin and I both have to argue that our game is more overrated.
Yeah, you just be like, oh, because Halo, it's just a bunch of driving around warhogs. And you'd be like, oh, but Call of Duty is just shooting dudes. And like, you'd have to make that argument. But you don't have
Whether
to make
or
it
not
a dumb
we
one.
believe it.
Okay, so Chris, what you have to do with your card, you're going first.
Whoa, we have to do the same thing for both our cards.
Yes, but you're going first.
Okay,
He's
cool.
going to go first. So,
All
so what you're going to do is you're going to make a sequel to that game that offers an in-depth psychological analysis of the player.
Of the player?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Can I look at my card now?
Just look at it right now, and then start wooing us for the next minute.
I can see it.
Damn it.
What, am I not supposed to see it?
You guys can see it.
Oh, this is the worst.
Metal Gear Solid.
Okay.
A sequel to Metal Gear Solid that offers didn't they already do that? All right. So in Metal Gear Solid, the Ocho, it's the 8th in the Metal Gear Solid series. The player starts off in just like a normal suburban home. It's as like a really old dude. The kids are sort of walking around, the family. You're Snake, and he's a grandpa, and he's settled down in Pleasantville. And as you sort of go about your daily life, you have these sort of Mass Effect style conversation trees. You can go around the neighborhood. You can't go too far because like your body's been through it, man. And so, but you go through it, and the people you're talking to, aren't they at first they start off and it sort of seems like normal dialogue, but then sometimes their questions get a little bit probing. This seems to be kind of a neighborhood in which people are more given to pontificating or to pondering the big questions, and then it's really the whatever clothes you have chosen to wear when you have those conversations determines what kind of person you are.
Oh. That was a twist at the end. It was nice. A very Shyamalan twist.
Yeah.
Okay, Justin, the same question is for you. You have a different game, though.
What was the question?
The question is you have to make a sequel, something in this universe, that offers an in-depth psychological analysis.
That offers an in-depth psychological analysis.
Of the player.
Of the player, yes.
So, funny that you should mention a Mass Effect-style dialogue tree, because my game is Mass Effect.
Oh, look at that.
So... does that mean I just win?
No. It has nothing to do with the game you have. It is all about the story that you construct.
So the sequel to Mass Effect is actually a prequel. It's set on Earth, and it follows the same Mass Effect gameplay style, except that there are no battles. There is only conversation that you can have with people, and the conversation choices that you make as you go along affect the ending. So there are one of 50 endings listed on the box, but they're all pretty much the same, except that the characters that you've interacted with will show up in different parts of the screen. So it uses cameras and it uses Kinect or the PlayStation camera to judge. You have to speak out all of your narrative choices.
Okay.
And
Oh, yeah,
it gives
now
you
we're
a
talking.
graph that shows you at the end of the game. It tells you the tone of voice that you used and whether you were kind or mean or an idiot based on how you talked. And that's how this Mass Effect prequel will work. But it's set on Earth, and all of the choices that you make will retcon into the future Mass Effect series.
Nice.
So if you go back and you play Mass Effect 1, all of the choices that you made in Mass Effect, the prequel, which is Mass Effect 4, will have changed.
Yeah, you just download a small patch.
Yeah,
and you're all
it's a
good
small
to go.
patch, and it changes the entire game.
So take one more card each. So both of you chose just answering questions, walking around and answering questions, which certainly work.
Hey, man. I had a
Certainly
minute.
work.
No, it's talking. Mine was about communicating.
Communicating. Okay. So the
me
next
pen.
one, and Justin's going first this time. Your game, your sequel in this universe, examines a divisive current event.
A divisive current event through
Through the lens of.
through the lens of Super Meat Boy.
Oh, this will be fun.
There's a
Okay,
count.
so what are we going with here?
A divisive current event. I don't actually want to do something too serious like Kiev because that's sad. And
I don't think there's a divisive. I guess technically it would be a civil war, but
a divisive current event would be the
seems like there's the side for not fighting is a good side.
Yes.
the Olympics.
Okay.
And you had Canada versus America today on the hockey game.
So how is this going to work in Super Meat Boy?
So Super Meat Boy is a hockey player in this game. It's still a 2D side scroller, so you might think that as a hockey game, it's pretty easy. But you have the Canadians and the Americans. You have to choose which character is going to or which team is going to win by sliding your body meatily into the goal. And the more times that you choose, it's not a fun game. I mean, you're just going to be doing this over and over again. You just play.
Ice is just going to be stained red.
It's like it
Gross.
lasts as long as a hockey game, which I think is roughly 10 to 12 hours. And you have to continuously take your character and put him into the goal for that entire duration. If you stop at any moment, the game resets and nobody wins. So you want to make sure that your team wins, which is either America or Canada, and the results after you do this go onto a leaderboard, which will decide the actual winner of hockey in the Olympics.
That is quite a way to examine a political issue. Sliding meat into a goal.
I would like to play that game. actually.
Benito is signed up.
down.
He's going to kickstart your idea.
All right. My game.
You love holding it up to the camera. I don't know what that is.
Spelunky.
Is it really?
It
It's
is.
your favorite game ever.
Oh, it's my favorite game ever.
So what is the political divisive event that you are going to tackle?
Well, as we all know, the issue of gay marriage is hugely divisive in not only the United States of America, but around the world. And gay rights continue to be a subject that is a battleground politically and morally, spiritually, etc., etc. So, in the sequel to Spelunky, you aren't delving into caves. You are an above-ground adventurer going through societies across the world. And the early levels are fairly straightforward. You go into Salt Lake City, Utah, a city in a largely conservative state that is actually fairly progressive. And the people you encounter...
Do you whip them?
Do you whip them?
So there's got to be creatures, right? So in these urban environments are a little bit outlandish. There are rats running around. You know, there are garbage can treasure chests for you to loot as you try to survive.
Are there
But
Mormons?
occasionally, you know, instead of having shopkeepers, they have political rallies that you'll come across. And so whether, you know, how you behave yourself in that rally sort of influences, like, you know, are you picking up a sign that says it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, or are you on the side of one love for all mankind? Tougher levels take you into more divisive areas. The final secret hell level is Nigeria, where you have to actually go in and, you know, be a gay rights activist in there without getting lynched or hacked up with a machete. No one has beaten it yet.
They can have cool costumes.
Despite multiple live streamers spending hours and hours trying to do it.
Okay, that was pretty interesting. Take one more card. That got dark in a hurry.
Hey man, you said
So,
divisive.
Chris, you're going to the last one.
Okay.
Your sequel is going to be the top story on Fox News for an entire day.
Ooh,
What is your game doing?
An entire 8 segments of the news cycle?
Everybody's going to be really angry about this.
Everyone is in a huge furore because of Rogue 2. Can you guys see the art?
What the heck is Rogue 2?
Oh, well, you know how there are games that are roguelikes, Tom?
Yes.
Rogue
yeah.
is the original roguelike.
Okay. So
It's just called
what is
Rogue.
this sequel doing that's getting it on Fox News?
Oh. Well, it's actually an ultra-liberal propaganda piece pro-choice. And in the beginning of it, you play as a tiny fetus and must battle your way down the fallopian tube past all sorts of morning after pills and other darker obstacles in order to be born into the world. And then you wait, which one was it? It was pro-choice. It was pro-light, pro-choice. Yeah. So you gotta get. Shit. I lost it. No. It's. I think I should have done it the other way around. Yeah. You gotta get. It's just really difficult. You could die very instantly because you're a little fetus, and you just have to make your way in the world and clothe yourself in garbage rags, or else be shot by people who,
Oh my God.
you know, other fetuses that have guns because gun control is non-existent, and you know, if I don't know.
I don't know if
That's
Fox
it.
News is leading with this.
Petered out.
Justin, what is your game? What are you doing that's going to lead Fox News?
So the lead of Fox News, do I use this game?
What is it?
I have Scrabulous,
Oh my God, I cannot wait to see this description.
which I'm calling Scrabble because I don't know what Scrabulous is. That sounds like a stupid game.
Scrabble's fine.
So
It's Scrabble.
Scrabble 2.
Scrabble 2, the Fox News learns about an estranged killer. He breaks into a preschool, kills everybody. They go through his home, and of course,
Preschool murder.
mixed among the guns and used condoms and lubricants and all of the weird ephemera, they find multiple copies of Scrabble 2 just laying about all over his apartment. And they discover through their investigative reporting that you can spell words like Hitler, like death, like guns.
And guns.
And they see these Scrabble games laid out with all of these words spelled out. And it takes the news cycle. There's a breaking story about 12 hours in where they find out that you can actually put together sentences using these tiles. And they find in his apartment that he has spelled out Hitler, Nerf, and Grandma,
Oh.
which they take to mean that there was probably some incest.
That,
Wow.
So I wasn't going to choose a winner, but I'm going to choose a winner because that last one was pretty great.
That one was good. That was good. Real good.
But that's it for the show. It's just, we're doing a short one today, so that's it. Thank you, Justin, so much for playing along,
Thank you, Thomas.
offering some interesting ideas on.
I'm glad we didn't have to leave you alone.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And Chris Waters.
Is that a Thomas was alone joke?
That was Thomas was a lone
know.
joke. I
trying
hate
to-
me. I'm the worst.
So do we all, Justin. Thanks, Tom. That was fun.
Thank
was
you.
A nice little podcast thingy.
And thank you so much to Benito, who is the man behind the camera, who knows things such as daylight and other facts that we had no idea about.
Who's much smarter than all of us combined.
So
And
yeah,
handsomer.
thank you so much for watching. Next week, hopefully, Kem Van Ord is back. Have a good one.
Well, please.